Russia moves air defense systems from NATO-encircled Kaliningrad to battlefield in Ukraine, UK int. Legence. Ukrainska Pravda. UK Defence Intelligence has suggested that Russia has moved strategic air defence assets from Kaliningrad Oblast in November to replace those lost in the war against Ukraine. Source: UK Defence Intelligence Review on Twitter dated 26 November, as reported by European Pravda details. Based on the exceptional movements of Russian transport aircraft during November 2023, UK Intelligence CE suggests that Russia may have moved strategic air defense systems from Kaliningrad Oblast to replace those lost. Below are your comments. This simply confirms what many already suspected. The Kremlin's use of Ukraine's potential NATO membership as a pretext for invasion is just an excuse. The true reason is Ukraine's refusal to submit to Putin's authority, coupled with Putin's perception that Ukraine is an extension of Russia. I am shocked at how much more punishment Russians are willing and able to take. This is an enormous amount of loss of men and material for any country. I believe it's time for NATO to put 500,000 men on Russia's western border. Either nothing will happen, likely, because Putin knows that nobody wants an inch of Russian soil, or Putin panics and pulls troops and weapons out of Ukraine, creating an opportunity to breach weakened Russian line. There is something going on that most NATO countries are secretly laughing at. The longer this war drags on, the more depleted the weapons Russia, North Korea, and Iran have, while at the same time, the more NATO learns the limits of Russian technology. And yet it's always Russia that's attacking its neighbors. NATO exists because of the USSR's actions, and it is still needed due to Putin's actions. Next news. Israeli forces bleep 7 Palestinians in West Bank, Palestinian officials say. Reuters. Israeli forces bleep 7 Palestinians, including 2 minors and at least 1 gunman, in the occupied West Bank late on Saturday and early Sunday, medics and local sources said. The West Bank, among territories where Palestinians seek statehood, has experienced a surge in violence parallel to the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip, now in its 8th week. 5 of the overnight deaths occurred in the city of Jenin, which the Israeli military said it raided to detain a Palestinian wanted for a. Below are your comments. The masses are dependent on whether the mainstream media is reporting the truth or not. We just hope the stories are 100% accurate and not controlled by the intelligence agencies of certain governments that wish a certain narrative is only reported. Israel will not give back the north part of Gaza that was taken. That was the plan for Israel that no one understand. The geographic location of Gaza is an obstacle for Israel. They will take over Gaza north and south, so they have full control over the sea part of the land. Reuters at it again. Real story is Israel forces bleep 6 terrorists, one of whom was on most wanted list for bleeping a father and son months ago. Another attempt by Reuters for deceit and trying to portray the bleepers as victims. For those who don't know Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. And still they are not called terrorists. Could you imagine if this happens somewhere else? They would be called terrorist by paid and elected government officials in Washington, London, and Paris. Always look up the authors. This is especially true with Reuters. Next news. A Dutch museum has sent Crimean treasures to Kyiv after a legal tug-of-war between Russia, Ukraine. Associated Press. Historical treasures that were stored for years at an Amsterdam museum during an ownership dispute sparked by Russia's annexation of Crimea have been safely transported to Ukraine, the museum announced Monday. This was a special case, in which cultural heritage became a victim of geopolitical developments. Els van der Plas, director of the Allard Pearson Historical Museum, said in a statement, "The museum displayed the 300 artifacts from 4 museums in Crimea in an exhibition that opened am. Below are your comments. I like to see artifacts returned to their proper home. I have always wondered, though, when a Spanish galleon or a Portuguese treasure ship is found why gold isn't returned to its source in South America from where the gold was stolen." Peskov's opinion has no leg to stand on. Crimea belongs to the Greater Ukraine and not an autonomous enclave that now Russia has stolen. Those precious artifacts belong to Kyiv now for safekeeping until Crimea is restored to its original status quo. Sorry Peskov. Sorry Russia. Ops, I don't fee. Crimea is Ukraine. Putin paid rent to Ukraine for leasing a naval base in Crimea. You pay rent to the owner, not the tenant. The safest place for the artifacts is for them to be on loan to museums far from the fighting until the war is over. Hiding them in a bunker somewhere in the war zone could lead to them being melted for the gold. After all, nobody in the area is above corruption. Next news. Tea in the moonlight as truce brings respite but not normality for Gazans. Reuters. Under a night sky illuminated by moonlight rather than flares and explosions, Gaza resident Ibrahim Kananj sat by a small bonfire outside his partially destroyed house, feeding the flames with bits of cardboard as he heated up water for tea. The peaceful scene, on the second night of a temporary truce between Israel and Hamas, was a moment of respite and reflection for Kananj, who like other Gazans has endured fear and hardship since the war began on October. These truce days have allowed pay. Below are your comments. No normalcy. These people have harbored, supported, provided aid and comfort for an internationally recognized terrorist organization. They deserve what they have gotten. They have allowed this terrorist organization to infiltrate the very fabric of their lives. Then, balk at the idea of B. The war began when Hamas militants broke out of Gaza on October 7 and rampaged through southern Israel. Thank you Yahoo News, for at least acknowledging, and reminding readers, how this all got started. Unfortunately, the African proverb is fitting: when elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. The war began when Hamas militants broke out of Gaza on October 7 and rampaged through southern Israel, bleep 1,200 people, among them babies and children, and seizing 240 hostages. Sanitized much? Hamas butchered innocents and subjected the Gaza residents to unnecessary death and destruction. Next news. Latvia urges EU to halt ammo sales to non-conflict nations for timely Ukraine support. The new voice of Ukraine. The European Union should postpone the sale of ammunition to third countries so that it can be provided to Ukraine, Latvian President Edgars Rinkevics has said. Below are your comments. This should be a no-brainer. Maybe not halt sales to non-conflict countries completely, but adjust the amount of munitions going to those countries so that the bulk can be sent to Ukraine. It seems that the country that is preventing Putin from being able to roll into the rest of Europe's hold B. Latvia should open a munitions plant, then they can supply Ukraine with munitions. The EU has already set aside $1 billion to buy munitions. Latvia just needs to build a factory. If we can postpone, for example, their purchases because they don't have an active military situation on, then perhaps that's what we should do. What if the country's enemy seizes the chance and assaults the country that is now exporting munitions to the EU in order to send? It is not the Latvian president speak, it is fear of Russia speak. Maybe Latvian President Edgars Rinkevics should talk less about European money. Residents of Europe decide for themselves where to use their taxes. And I advised Latvian President Edgars Rinkevics to talk less and show by his example how much he supports Ukraine, how much he wants its success. IPR. Next news. Zelensky: Putin would subject Ukraine to another Holodomor famine if he could. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is convinced that Russian President Vladimir Putin would subject Ukraine to another famine, akin to the Holodomor of 1932–33, if he could. Source: Office of the President of Ukraine, citing President Zelensky during the Second International Grain from Ukraine Summit in Kyiv. Details. Opening the summit, President Zelensky said that Russia launched more than 70 Shahed attack drones on Ukraine in the early hours of the 25th of November, the day when the victims of T. Below are your comments. A dictator who only brings suffering to Ukrainians and Russians in the east of Ukraine. He done nothing good for Ukrainians, nothing at all. During his mandate, it is possible that a hungry calamity will happen again for Ukrainians. Zelensky is not a guarantee that this will not happen. Zelensky and Ukraine systematically discriminated against the Russian-speaking population even to the point of shelling them with artillery since 2014. Zelensky has been throwing Orthodox Christians into jail and he cancelled elections. Who is fighting for freedom? You have over $150 billion. Figure it out. You lost all the men fighting Biden's war. Now for the rest, sir comedian. Actually, that's exactly what he's doing. It's only Western aid that's preventing it. Next news. Lithuania to give €2 million to support grain from Ukraine initiative. Ukrainska Pravda. Lithuania has announced that it will give €2 million to support the grain from Ukraine initiative. Source: Lithuanian Prime Minister Ingrida Simonite on Twitter. X. As reported by European Pravda, quote, "At the second Grain from Ukraine summit, I announced that this year, Lithuania will contribute another €2 million to this global humanitarian initiative by President Zelensky to help mitigate threats to food security caused by Russia's war of aggression." Below are your comments. Thank you, Lithuania. Thank you, Finland. You have proven your internal fortitude by standing for what the right thing to do really means. This is a forward move that Russia has been intensely trying to prevent, which is absolutely misguided and inhumane, as Russia is now being known for in more ways. Wow, €2 million free donations by Lithuania and $3 million by Finland. And this war was supposed to be fight for Europe's survival. Must be really cheap that survival is for Europe. Are the people in this country da ha ha You are being seriously swindled by Ukraine. And you will not be attacked by Russia, no you won't. Stop with the drama. Okay, you are part of NATO now. Nice new villa for some cancelled elections fan in corrupt Ukraine. Slava, Ukraine. 1. Next news. Drones show how Israeli bombs turned Gaza into moonscape. Reuters. The pictures filmed before October 7 show schools, mosques and churches, and the 14th-century Barkuk Islamic fortress. Gaza, which lies along the Mediterranean coast, has long been under an Israeli and Egyptian blockade that has restricted Palestinians' movement. Some of the footage showed the beach refugee camp, an area of squat, tightly packed cinder block houses, with washing hanging outside. Below are your comments. Let's remember two things. 1. Hamas wanted to change the status quo and said that's why they attacked Israel. 2. Hamas has stated that Israel has no right to exist. Let's say Hamas did good with number 1, but it looks like it will be Hamas that will cease to exist. There are towns in France that were completely destroyed during WW2. A few were left that way as a memorial. A way to remember. Leave Gaza that way. so that terrorists don't forget what will happen if they try another attack. Israel attacked Gaza in retaliation for a raid by Hamas militants on southern Israel. This is a foul. Ehud. Israel's stated goals in its military operations is the destruction of Hamas as a military and political force. It is not in retaliation. If it was just retaliation, they would have just. Now the battle will be to keep U.S. tax dollars out of the area. Next news. Partners to help Ukraine strengthen Odessa Oblast air defense, guard ships in Black Sea. Kyiv Independent. Odessa Oblast will soon be protected by very powerful air defense with the help of Ukraine's partners. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on November 25. Ukraine's allies have also started supplying the country with boats to escort ships passing through the Black Sea humanitarian corridor, the president said at a press conference. Below are your comments. Rendering Putin's Black Sea fleet ineffective is the most important achievement of Ukraine's counter-offensive to date. Now, Ukraine is making incremental progress north of Crimea too. Firstly, they're halfway to Tokmak. Secondly, on the western part of Putin's land bridge, Ukraine is now Adva. The peace plan for Ukraine. How to resolve the Ukrainian crisis and why should the entire southeastern region of Ukraine be full? Why return to Russia? 18 million Russian citizens live in the southeast of Ukraine. Yes, about 1.5 million Russian citizens live in Crimea. The entire southeastern TE. Any ship donation to Ukraine will end up getting drone and mining upgrades that will be very innovative. Those upgrades will cost the US nothing. However, if we were to contract them, it would be super expensive. Next news. Ukraine's military says Russia launched its largest drone attack since the start of the invasion. WCMH. Please wait a moment. In total, Russia launched 75 Iranian-made Shahed drones against Ukraine, of which 74 were destroyed by air defenses, Ukraine's Air Force said. Kyiv was the main. Below are your comments. Excellent, assume somewhat true. I'd guess the story that the U.S. Haas managed to double the number of German Jeopard anti-drone D-Uni TS in Ukhr was a factor. Moscow speaks and reports. November 25, 2023. The main thing from the briefing of the Russian Defense Ministry on November 22. Over the current week, the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine amounted to 3,135 wounded and bleep. Air defense systems shot down 3 MiG-29 aircraft of the Ukrainia. Everything must be done according to the law and in accordance with the documents that say that the entire southeastern region of Ukraine is the territory of Russia, which should be restored to Russia. After the collapse of the USSR in 1991, it is necessary to clearly understand and take into account Next news. Grain Russia steals from occupied territories of Ukraine should be sanctioned, Latvian President. Ukrainska Pravda. Latvian President Edgars Rinkevics has said that issues around grain and other foodstuffs Russia steals from the occupied territories of Ukraine should be taken into account in decisions regarding sanctions against Russia. Below are your comments. Every time I hear about sanctioning Russia on grain, it makes me think about that TV show Rome, which was pretty much a fictional depiction of Julius Caesar's rise and fall, as well as Octavius and Mark Antony. Well, anyway, when Octavius Caesar took over Rome and Mark Antony was over Egypt, Rome might be kind of difficult to differentiate between grain grown in Russia from grain grown in Ukraine. Though, if this true, what are those Ukrainian in occupied lands eating? Since they're occupied, it's Russia's duty to help them live a better life, even by helping them sell their harvest. Oversight Congressional Committee. China sent millions through 23 hidden offshore Biden shell accounts while Biden used 5 fake names to hide his identity, which sent off 170 money laundering red flags at 5 different banks. So the committee subpoenaed the bank records and it showed direct wire transfers fro. Next news. Russians want to encircle Avdiivka with support from aircraft. Ukraine's armed forces repelled 23 attacks, General Staff. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukrainian defenders have repelled 23 attacks on the Avdiivka front over the past day. Source: General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook. Information as of 6 o'clock on 26 November. Details. A total of 58 combat clashes between Ukrainian and Russian forces took place during the past day. Below are your comments. Seems like with the UKR Officer Corps abandoning their troops in Avdiivka, the only ones that do not know this deadly Biden proxy war is over are the UKR troops left behind in Zelensky. No one on either side wants to be the last troop to die in a war that could have been avoided. Russia will take Avdiivka, no question about it. It's just a matter of timing. I've been watching Avdiivka for a while and it's not looking good. Russia just keeps throwing bodies at it and they got the ammo and drones from North Korea and Turkey. Without more assistance, Avdiivka is likely to fall by December. The Ukrainians are fighting hard though and making Russia really pay. Many Russian units are turning cargo 500, refusing to fight. Only if F-16 has been made available since last year. Next news. Ukrainian forces vigilant as Russians plan Kupiansk reoccupation, Army says. The new voice of Ukraine. Russian invasion forces are attempting to identify vulnerabilities in the defense of Kupiansk in Kharkiv Oblast to once again occupy the city. Volodymyr Fityo, Ukraine's Ground Forces Command spokesperson, RSON, said on national television on November 26. Below are your comments. Until now, everything Russians wanted were happened. So, it is expected that the reoccupation will take place after a huge Ukrainian resistance. Russia hasn't yet lost but is losing. Give it time. Defeat looms in number 1 Avdiivka, in number 2 Bakhmut, for the second time, and number 3 near Kherson. Will Kupiansk become number 4? The situation all fronts resemble an earlier defeat in Bakhmut with unsustainable losses in men and equipment eating away at morale. Biden needs to grow a pair and provide the Ukraine army with American air support. 1 week of bombing and this war will end. Wonderful. Russian strategic planning never works well for the Russians. If it did, they would not be in the mess they have been in for 20 months. Lol. The Russians can plan all they want, just like Hitler, and get the same results. Next news. Elon Musk to meet with Israel's president amid anti-Semitism controversy. Fox Business. Billionaire Elon Musk is set to meet with Israeli President Isaac Herzog and representatives of Hamas' hostages' family members on Monday as he faces an anti-Semitism controversy. Below are your comments. Growing anti-Semitism? What they don't tell you is that the definition of anti-Semitism has been changed to include criticize of what Israel is doing in Gaza, the slaughter of thousands of children. Herzog, the president of Israel, has called any American who opposes what Israel is doing in Gaza will not purchase any products Elon has any interest in. Anti-Semitism is any criticism of Israel's actions regardless of what they are. Don't like them bleep American sailors? You're an anti-Semite. Don't like them spying on us? You're an anti-Semite. Don't like the stranglehold they have on our government? You guessed it. Don't give an inch, Elon. Gratitude is what they need. Musk, our protection is not free. How did Netanyahu react to being told he's telling lies to have white people replaced in the West? Next news. Ukraine to demobilize conscripts after their service terms end. Danilov, the new voice of Ukraine. Ukraine's military and political leadership has approved a plan to demobilize drafted conscripts who say service terms have ended. Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council (NSDC) Secretary Oleksiy Danilov told public broadcaster Radio Ukraine on November 24. Below are your comments. The trick is the date set to start, which will be whenever replacements are found. Ukraine's military and political leadership has approved a plan to demobilize drafted conscripts who say service terms have ended. Russian weapons have been demobilizing them quite well already. Pink mist ends service term. These sorts of announcements are entirely meaningless without a date. Meanwhile, Russia's desperate for manpower. Most Russians don't want Putin's senseless war. Russia's wealthy white people in Moscow, St. Petersburg refuse to fight. So they draft minorities, prison convicts, Africans, Cubans, paid mercenaries, homeless, Belarusians, Cubans, Serbians, Eritreans. Next news. NATO set to finalize Ukraine's membership recommendations this week, says Stoltenberg. The new voice of Ukraine. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has said NATO members during a NATO-Ukraine meeting this week will agree on recommendations for reforms Kyiv must implement to gain membership of the alliance. UK newspaper The Guardian reported on November 27. Below are your comments. Turkey and Hungary will never allow Ukraine into NATO. Turkey is already stalling Sweden's NATO entry. I would be in favor of immediately including Ukraine into NATO with the understanding that NATO will not defend Ukraine from Russia until the war is over. Other countries such as an attack from Belarus would trigger NATO involvement. Neither Ukraine nor NATO seem to understand that will not happen. If Russia has anything to say about it, and for what we have seen in the last 2 years, Russia has a lot to say. NATO membership will help to secure Ukraine. Russia should have its UN membership downgraded and removed from its governing bodies. Next news. Russians launch Shahed UAVs from south. Ukrainska Pravda. On the evening of the 24th of November, the Ukrainian Air Force reported a threat of Russian attack UAVs from Ukraine's south. Source: Air Force on Telegram. Quote, a group of Shahed UAVs on the border of Kherson, Mykolaiv and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts, flying northwest. Below are your comments. Moscow speaks and reports. November 25, 2023. The main thing from the briefing of the Russian Defense Ministry on November 22. Over the current week, the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine amounted to 3,135 wounded and bleep. Air defense systems shot down 3 MiG-29 aircraft of the Ukrainia. Nobody cares about this war any longer. It all but over. Russia has won. There is no need for these drone attacks but to spite the Ukrainians. PPL. Degree. There were no 3 days. In military terminology, this is called blitzkrieg and means a quick attack, quick win. A quick attack did not work out, as it was planned to take Kiev and remove the Ukrainian fascists' power. Next news. Similar to Shahed, Russians study drones that attacked them at night. Ukrainska Pravda. Russians are studying the new drones, resembling their own Shahed UAVs, that attacked them at night. And on the morning of the 26th of November. Source: Russian Telegram channel Mash. Quote, according to one version, Ukraine's armed forces attacked Tula with flying wing-type drones, which is why they are similar to the infamous Russian Gerin UAVs. The name used for Shaheds by the Russians, ed. Below are your comments. How about they leave Ukraine and study peace? They should rig the drones with explosives so they blow up when control box is tampered with after L. Launch on one-way drones, a happy surprise for invaders. Moscow needs to be bombed. The Russians need to get their own dose of explosive medicine. Keep the good work, Ukraine. The upgraded Shahed, what a marvelous gadget, it can fly longer and be precise. Just need to be raw. Deterrent. Soon resistance can develop and use them against enemies. Next news. Servant of the People Party responds to MP Bazula's call for Zaluzhny's resignation. The new voice of Ukraine. The press service of the pro-presidential Servant of the People Party has issued a response to the R.E. statement made by one of its own MPs, Mariana Bazula, calling for the resignation of General Valery Zaluzhny, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Below are your comments. By now we see cracks in the European alliance with Ukraine, US cracks as well, now we see even cracks in Ukraine's gov. Pretty soon the purge will start, they're waiting for the US green light, it's coming. She is absolutely correct. The talkative generals should be imprisoned, while the worthless servants of the People's Party show LD be sent to the Avdiivka battleground. How about his trial for war crimes? Servant of the People Party helped themselves, not the people. They contributed to the destruction of Ukraine. In this hour of need, please stop the foolishness. Next news. Israel releases 39 Palestinian miners. Ukrainska Pravda. Israel has released 39 more Palestinians on Sunday the 26th of November, following a temporary ceasefire agreement. Source: NBC News. Details. The International Committee of the Red Cross also said it had helped assist in the release of 19 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli detention centers. Below are your comments. How much money is Joe going to give this time? Taxpayer fund both sides of every war around the world. Is this the fundamental changes we were told was coming? Why isn't it mentioned in the article that Israel has arrested and detained more than 3,000 Palestinians in the West Bank since October 7? During the 4-day truce, they have arrested 260. Well done. Hamas has succeeded in exposing the occupiers' disgusting practice of imprisoning children. Minors equals children. Next news. There is no place for Russia in International Maritime Organization, Zelensky. Ukrainska Pravda. Russia must not be a member of the International Maritime Organization, IMO, since it has done more damage to free navigation in the recent decades than any other country. Source: Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, in an address to the participants of the 33rd Assembly of the International Maritime Organization, quote, Russia has no place in the International Maritime Organization, nor in its governing bodies, because No one in recent decades has caused greater harm to free navigation. Below are your comments. Does he ever stop talking? Yap, yap, yap. If Zelensky were a female, he would be a Karen. Wait, is he? Hey T-shirt boy. You're about to become a landlocked country if Ukraine still remains a country at all. Next news. European Commission to give Ukraine €50 million to repair its ports after Russian attacks. Ukrainsk. A Pravda. The European Commission will give Ukraine €50 million to repair its ports in the wake of Russian attacks in order to facilitate the export of Ukrainian agricultural products to the global market. Below are your comments. Not too smart doing it now, Russia will just destroy it again. So, whose pocket is this going into? Rebuilding ports at this time is a waste of resources. Wars and natural disasters are the best customers to save capitalism from overproduction without rising wages. Moscow speaks and reports. November 25, 2023. The main thing from the briefing of the Russian Defense Ministry on November 22. Over the current week, the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine amounted to 3,135 wounded and bleep. Next news. Who are the released hostages? BBC. 58 people captured during the 7th of October attacks have been released by Hamas. Below are your comments. I am sure it is a great comfort and relief to all friends and relations of those now released that Hey are back out again and that the ordeal, at least for those few, has ended for now. For Hamas this is a sideshow, a distraction from what they are and what they have done. This hostage release card will be played as long as possible. Just can't swallow any group that takes children hostage or uses women and children as human shields. Hamas redefines inhuman terrorists. Old women and children. Hamas terrorists are good at beating up women, children and the elderly. They are evil cowards who will be judged by God for their crimes. No American hostages released? Next news. Former Russian Prime Minister added to Putin's foreign agent list. The Hill. Russian President Vladimir Putin added a former Russian Prime Minister to the country's foreign agent list Friday. Mikhail Kasyanov, Putin's first prime minister, later became the Russian president's opponent. With his designation by the Russian Justice Ministry as a foreign agent, Kasyanov's credibility could be undermined. Law in Russia allows for organizations and individuals who. Below are your comments. Are there any tall buildings with big windows in Latvia? I suppose that's to stop him from running against Putin. Everyone from the Yeltsin administration is a foreign agent. Putin has no friends. He will either die from a mysterious illness or fall from the 11th floor balcony of a 10-story building. Next news. Mikhail Kasyanov, Russia labels ex-PM and Putin critic, foreign agent. BBC. A critic of the war in Ukraine, Mikhail Kasyanov was PM during President Putin's first term. Below are your comments. Kasyanov was one of many opposition voices in Russia who were exiled, imprisoned, or bleeped by the Kremlin. An autocratic government becomes stronger temporarily by stifling criticism of its actions, but in the long run, such as government loses perspective and does not evolve effectively in dealing. A lot of Russians are critical of Putin. He is too stubborn to realize he made a big mistake. Russia has and will continue to pay for Putin's mistakes. Pretty soon Russia will have more foreign agents than citizens. Mad Vlad can't have any legitimate competition, he might lose. Lol. Next news. Russia activates sleeper spies network in Ukraine, says Danilov. The new voice of Ukraine. Russia has intensified its network of sleeper spies in Ukraine over the past 2 months, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Oleksiy Danilov said in an interview with the UK news paper The Times on November 27. Below are your comments. To create, restore unity, Kremlin should have clean hands and open hearts. Neither is on the table and neither good is in perspective possible. Generation of those trained to confront the world of free should go in order for peace became peaceful. America should help that time came true. Sleepers or not, the paranoia will run deep. They will put lots of innocents up against the wall, because they could be spies. Next news. Russia faces logistical challenges in employing cruise missiles, UK intelligence. Ukrainska Pravda. The UK Ministry of Defence (MOD) has suggested that Russia's Black Sea Fleet (BSF) logistical challenges in the port city of Novorossiysk have affected their ability to launch cruise missiles towards Ukraine. Below are your comments. Keep repeating the SOS over and over again, and get the SOS results. The propaganda writers are losing their creativity. Translation from Newspeak. While Russia faces challenges in employing cruise missiles, Ukraine faces cruise missiles. Well, duh. Say what you will about the Russians. They know how to key the SVBHV man UKRA Pibleep M0 Nagur I0 LDS! Exclamation mark. And one can only applaud them for it. Dot. Next news. Russia has activated a sleeper network of spies in Ukraine to try to exploit internal divisions, Ukrainian official says. Insider. Russia has activated a sleeper network of spies in Ukraine to stoke tensions because it knows it can win war militarily, Ukrainian official said. Below are your comments. Zelensky, who fires a general or commander weekly, should be vetted among those suspected of being a Russian agent. Nothing says unity about the way he is running the show. Well done. Excellent news. Like our Republican Congress? The stock photo is hilarious. Just look at all the Russian TRR0LLS that haunt Yahoo News every day here, including those in the Russian diaspora in the USA. Next news. SBU. Kherson Regional Council member supplies Russia with fuel, food. Kyiv Independent. A Ukrainian regional council member in Russian-occupied Kherson Oblast is suspected of treason for supplying Russian occupying forces with fuel and food through multiple companies under his control. He Security Service of Ukraine. SBU. Reported on November 27. Below are your comments. The guy obviously don't consider himself a Ukrainian anymore and is a Russian full-on now. He's not a Yuki collaborator, he's a Russian dealing with Russians. You guys bleeped his brother, he's not a Yuki anymore. Kovalev's younger brother, Alexei Kovalev, was a Ukrainian MP who was bleeped. Next news. Russia prepares new lists of Ukrainian children for deportation, says NRC. The new voice of Ukraine. Russian occupiers are in the process of compiling new lists of children in temporarily occupied territories for subsequent forcible removal, Ukraine's National Resistance Center, NRC, said on November 27. Below are your comments. The children would do much better being adopted by European and American minor-attracted couples. Wicked agenda. They sealed their own destruction by stealing children. May every child be restored to family and country. War crime. And China lets it happen. Wow. Children as prisoners of war. Only Russia and Hamas can be so brutal. Next news. Russian occupation regime ramps up efforts to find unreliables in Crimea. Ukrainska Pravda. The Russian occupation regime in Ukraine's Crimea is recruiting additional personnel to the center are countering extremism of the Ministry of Internal Affairs in the Republic of Crimea. Center including civilian collaborators. Below are your comments. Effect number 1 I see from the car explosion. The Kremlin is filled to the brim with unreliable folks, unreliable for a modern, progressive Russia. Dog it, seems as though those cameras are from the 1980s. Source: Ukraine's National Resistance Center. Certainly no chance of bias or propaganda from them. Next news. Lightning strikes bleep 24 in India amid unusually heavy rainstorms. CBS News. Unseasonably heavy rainstorms slammed India's western state of Gujarat, packing lightning-blamed foe. Are the deaths of 24 people and 3 buffalo. Below are your comments. As shocking as this seems, keep in mind that there are 1.45 billion people in India. Sorta like bleeping fish in a barrel. Could the lightning even miss? I am shocked at the numbers, rip. Sorry to hear of these losses. The guidance for lightning safety is the same worldwide, even for the buffaloes. In India, those people were replaced by new babies within seconds. Better than being alive in India. Next news. Russia launches largest drone attack since start of Ukraine invasion. C4ISRNET. 75 Iranian-made Shahed drones were launched against Kyiv, of which 74 were destroyed by air defenses. Ukraine said. Below are your comments. Fake news, as we were all told Russia was completely depleted of weapons last spring. Since Iran and North Korea wish to supply arms to Russia, I guess they are now fair game also, right? 74 out 75. Yeah, right. Why not just claim the lot? Oh wait, this is from Ukraine. No, nothing, do nothing, totally broke country. Next news. Dozens kidnapped by motorcycle bandits in North Nigeria. BBC. At least 100 are abducted over an unpaid tax the gunmen had imposed on villagers, residents say. Below are your comments. The religion of peace at it again. And yet, we continue to import people from these countries by the 100,000s. Yep, thousands upon thousands pouring into USA from these countries. How sweet it is. Thank you, Biden. Cause Brandon. Two things is life. Death and taxes greater than. Roll Tide again. Taking lessons from Hamas. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you like it, please thumbs up.